a series of the CycleKart builds here in my garage. So really this is to do two things. One, get my CycleKarts built. I have two of them here. I got two frames. One is a rebuild, the 5th edition of the 1910 Buick Bug. The other is a 1930s MG Midget. So, let's go over a few things on there and then on the parts. And let's see what we got. So. Alright, so what we have here is this is the 1930s MG frame. And then on the background is the 1910 Buick Bugs frame. But what I wanted to go over was some of the parts that have been ordered in regards to some of this stuff. So let's go ahead, because we're going to talk about the front end on this. So let's go ahead and move up there and talk about the various parts that we have. So at Titan last year, my wife drove the 1910 Buick Bug, and we had some problems with the steering system, the rack and pinion that we got. So she does not want that system in her CycleKart. So we're going to go with a traditional go-kart steering. So what I have here is the front axle beam. Okay. Then I have bent it. Well, actually what it is I made this bend, then I made this bend, cut them, and then put in this little extension here. And then last time when we had our live Zoom meeting, actually I cut this down and narrowed it even more to better fit this car. And so there's the frame sitting right there. And in addition to that, Vintage CycleKart, I ordered some of these. These are their spindle adapters that fit into the Azusa Metal Z or C clamp. So that makes it a lot easier. And instead of the plastic bushing, it has an oil impregnated bushing here, which will take up a lot of the slop. I was actually building this during that live Zoom meeting, not building this part, but building this setup. So let's go over some of the other parts that we have with our steering system. So here's the bolts that came with the Azusa set. Okay, nice tight on the bolt there itself. Okay, so that's really nice. So let's go ahead and talk about what I got in this beautiful tube here. Alright, so there we go. So what I have here is two steel rods here. Well, actually, I shouldn't say it's steel. One steel, and one is aluminum. There we go. So here's a nice steel rod. Okay. And an aluminum rod. Wanted to try some stuff out. Also got some U-bolts from our local RV and trailer place to help hold the axle in place. Also, the axle mounts and 2 plates to help hold all that together. So we're going to get all that bolted together in today's video. And also, we have these 2 boxes here. I want to go ahead and open them up here. So that way I could talk about what is in it and what's the purpose of these different things. So let's go ahead and go through this one. Okay. Alright, so what I have in here, I ordered CycleKart. So, these are QA1 Precision products. New tie rod ends for building my own custom setup, so that way I'm not constantly trying to figure out what the length is and ordering the length. I have bought the rod, so I've got an aluminum one, try that out, but I'm already looking, that's a lot of flex in there in the steel. So I've ordered these tie rod ends, both left and right-handed threads. Well, to do that, you have to have some other parts. So this is what's called a die. Collection of bolts for jamming. Another collection of bolts. So one of these is these are left-handed threaded nuts to jam on the left-handed side. And then right-handed nuts. And these are all 3/8 24 thread. And then we have my other die. Okay, this is a left-handed die so that I can cut threads onto the rod that I need to cut. So one side will obviously be left-handed threads, the other side will be right-handed threads, so that way I can make adjustments just like this go-kart rod here. Okay, so these are all the parts that we're going to need to go through the steering. So, oops. But right now, what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and mount the arm into place. We're going to mount this into place for today. Okay, these rods will be used in the next video, so we're going to just set those off to the side for now. Because what we'll have to do is once we get this mounted, we got to get the body on, which is sitting back, so that way we can get the steering system set up. This little bar here was designed for the rack and pinion system, but as I mentioned before, we're not going to be using that. So I'll go ahead and get these mounted on here for today's video. Okay, so I painted this just to get it so it wasn't so rusted. I will have to come back and paint these so that they don't rust out. But first I want to just get everything mounted to make some quick measurements of where the body is going to actually sit. Okay. I got these, and I have to unthread. these cut off. Okay, last one. Okay. Plates. So once again, we're just going to get this mounted up, get some measurements made up, get the steering. This is all just our kind of our mock-up build. So let's go ahead and get that on there. Okay. There we go. Tape. Two inches. 2 1/8. 2 1/16. 2 1/16. Okay. So now I'm gonna move everything. There we go. Okay. Okay, so right now I'm just getting them down hand tight. Gonna jam these with a nylon locker on top of this. And then cut the excess off. This should hopefully put the center of gravity down pretty low. Now, if you have any questions, you're welcome to put them in the YouTube chats. I can field questions as we go. So yeah, if you have questions, please ask them. Not that I'm anywhere near an expert, not even close. Just another hobbyist that's enjoying the hobby. Yes, I'm calling it a hobby. Okay. So now I got these on. You can see they're a little loose still, so go ahead and put those down a little more. You know what, let me do that. Ratchet. Oops, wrong side. So, some little philosophy, I guess, while I'm building. So I have many decisions. I've done videos on my build. You look back and see the failed attempts of foam and epoxy. I shouldn't say epoxy, resin. You'll see the body from my racing. Lessons, there's lots of lessons, being a school teacher on there. But one thing I found interesting when I watch other videos is the straight, speed up, skips, which is good, but I also wanted to kind of literally go through this with you, one-on-one kind of. So, all right, so I set this up. There's just a small set of, not camber, caster, so tip back. I'll adjust as needed. So now, let's go ahead and get these bolts in. So, Jack was kind enough over at Vintage CycleKart to let me get another set of these that I have on my other one. They're hexed on the top to help hold the bolt in place, so that now I take this front end. So if I go this way, or am I going to go this way? Okay, that puts it up even higher. And it's from going off of this one, my other friend, from center out, roughly 11.5 inches. Roughly 11.5. So, real quickly, if I take this, whoops, and I put it to the top, where does 11.5 inches, that's what the tape set to, sets me at. So that's really to that point. Okay, so now if I did it with the bolt downwards, the shaft, that gets me just below these. So I have a wheel sitting right here. Okay, and then so I'm looking at this and I'm going from the rim edge 2.5. So yeah, it's just below these carriage bolts here, these not carriage bolts, U-bolts. So that's definitely low center of gravity with that wheel being so high. My next question is the back wheels in relations to the front. Mostly concerned about the rake within the body. Okay, so we have it this way. So now we have the body ready to go. What I'm looking for now is looking at how I'm going to set the steering. The body ends right about here. Okay, to go along with the Midget, because it had this long flat piece here. Didn't have this, but decorative. So that means the steering rod would have to be on the front if I do it to the front here. Oops. So, or if I do it to the back, so I'm definitely going to go with the lower angled spindle. So if I go to the back, that puts it up high. So I think this is where we're going to go. So we're going to go ahead and mount both of these this way. There we go. Then I got the nylon lockers. I'm not going to thread them all the way in because I don't want to keep messing up the nylon lock. I just want to make sure that it doesn't get kicked out. Because, you know, these are only good so many times. So I'm going to just thread that up. There we go. Okay, so those are in. This is in. So the next is talking about steering. And so I have this rod. This is an extra one I had off of a go-kart that I disassembled. A friend of mine has most of the pieces now. So this way, I can set this up right here, and then I can make adjustments and then go to a plate here inside the cart. So I think that's the design we're going to go with. So this is inside the body. Okay. Yeah. So clean up my mess. So one of the things that we're looking at is this. Now the goal is to get these both to a rolling chassis. So those are in, that's in, okay? So the next thing I need to do is to work on the Buick Bug's rear end. So let's go ahead and go and look at that real quickly. The front of the Morgan is there. I need to set the body on to get to the next step. So let's take a look at this. So right now the body is just sitting right here. I got some other parts sitting on it. So originally I was going to do the rack and pinion. So here's the rod that would come from the steering wheel. And then everything's kind of jammed in. And then had to make this funky move around the pedal assembly and then to the front to hook to the rack. So that's all getting changed. Okay. Control arm for a buggy, sand rail that I'm also working on. And another one. So both of these have to get out of the way. Start. And then, so here's one of my seats. This is for the Buick Bug. It's kind of interesting. On the Buick Bug, it almost looks like a old executive leather chair that they used for its racing seat. Ken was able to score two of these, both tall backs. I cut this one down, and then I'm going to pad it and add leather to it, because I do like the rigidity of this and the strength. So this will probably be going on to the Buick Bug. But here's the body of the Morgan. So I'm going to change the back end a little bit more because it was more rounded than this corner. So this was just a temporary mock-up just to see about pulling these two pieces of plywood together. Now, yes, this is some thick plywood, but instead of going out and buying thin plywood to go with it, that's what I had. So I wasn't planning on changing it. But let's go ahead and look at the other frame real quick, and this is where we're going to end off. Is this, let me get it set up. Okay, so on the Buick Bug, the 1910 Buick Bug, the only year that car was produced, I only produced 3 of them. There's still one around in Flint, Michigan. And before the COVID-19 outbreak and such, I was scheduled to go there this summer and be able to take my Buick Bug into their museum and set it up next to the original one that Chevy Lewis drove, Lewis Chevrolet, sorry, and be able to take photos with it. So it's because of that, it's been postponed to 2021. But their frame came to a tapered, and then what happened is right here it bent around, and then the rear leaf spring went. So talking with Steve Vincent about the axle hole and stuff, and now these came with the bearing plates that came with it, and kept debating about putting the axle through or using these, and I decided to go with these. And the reason why, one, has 2 main reasons. One is the axle and everything can just go down. So if there's a issue, it can go down and not have to try to take things apart and slide it all the way through. Second one was so that when I bend the bar to come off of here, so it comes this way, and make the fake leaf spring over, the axle actually sits a little bit lower, so that way it actually has the leaf spring bend to it like I do up in the front. So yeah, there we have it. Now, this frame was put together. I did one mistake on it, and I wanted to go over that. Is the width of this frame. So when I made the measurements and drawings and all of that stuff, I wanted an interior of roughly, I believe it was 18 inches is what I wanted. 17 and a half, that's exactly what I wanted. 17 and a half, I have it written down over here. And somehow I mismeasured and got it in my head, and I have 16 inches. I have 16 inches from the front all the way to the back. And so I have had to make some determinations on, do I cut this part here and widen it? That's been one of my thoughts, and I think I'm going to. 16 inches is pretty narrow, and I'm a pretty big guy, and I don't want to have to try to jam myself between 2 frame rails. I want to have a little bit of room, because in the original Buick Bug, yes, it was narrower than any of the other cars, because it was the only car that didn't have the mechanic in the vehicle with them. But it was still pretty wide in regards, because you can see at least 2 to 3 inches on either side of the seat just for spacing. And right now that seat and the body would literally all be molded around me, and there wouldn't be much room, especially in any driver change style racing. So that's going to be some issues. But I went ahead and did a front end that matches it a lot more. It comes up, so this is a 3-inch rail, and then it comes up and it curves. I've then faced it here and here, okay, and then I've added kind of a socket. So this is a stack of actually about 3 washers, successively fender washers, that successively gotten smaller to give me this rounded figure that's kind of like on there. You can see there's still some fixed welds to go through. And the one thing is this is a long thread awl that I put on there, but I'm going to probably change that and weld this nut here and then put a rod between it, and then this way I can just put a bolt, and I'm not trying to unthread this long thread awl like an axle all the way through this thing. The Buick Bug also had a front straight end. It comes over. These are the vintage CycleKart's front spindles. And because I went with this because of being the straight front end, the frame is actually up higher than my first few designs. And so I wanted to be able to bring the center of the axle up higher, or the front hub, so that way I don't have it sitting so high. So I went with the ones from vintage CycleKart on here, and then went ahead and upgraded the ones on the Morgan. So in addition to both of those, they both will be running the Buick Bug will be running a Honda GX 200. The Morgan will be running a Predator. Both of them will have the stage 1, meaning that the governor will be removed. Sort of. I'll show you a trick on that. I left it so I can have throttling on the Predator. The Honda, it was taken off. Kelly is the one that provided me that engine. So, yeah, that's where we are on all of this. So there we are for today's video. Just a quick update, and what I kind of want to do is literally do this weekly, mostly to keep up with building. The other is just for information. It was interesting. We had our live Zoom meeting with a bunch of CycleKart builders across, well, we had one from the other side of the pond. And it was really neat talking to them about their builds and stuff like that, and their inspirations. Not just the inspiration car, but other people and how they got into it. And so I've found that I've gotten staled. I've started dragging my feet on the builds, and I figured this will help me by documenting it, not just photos, but actually having to produce results. And so being an automotive teacher and I'm having to work from home, I have several projects now here at the house, hence these were usually helped on and built with my students, but kind of wanted to enjoy these this summer, so they will be built pretty quickly. But yeah, so this was a quick video. If you have any questions, go ahead and reach out. And then especially there is the opportunities on CycleKartClub.com. There's Facebook channels out there that you can get a hold of various builders that, find somebody that inspires you and find a car that inspires you. And we're all there to help each other out. This is a great hobby that we have. It's a hobby where we get to build more or less an oversized go-kart that we don't feel too silly driving around. So, all right, I will see you guys at the next build. Thank you for joining me.